Alright, question 5 from June 2012 is a general question on IFRS, accounting standards. 10 marks, 16:33, 18 minutes, 16:51. And again, I said it in the introduction to question 4 and in question 3 actually, that in your 15 minutes reading time, 5 of that 15 minutes should have been addressed to here. 10 marks divided by 2 gives you 5 minutes of thinking time for this 10 mark question. But we've still got 18 minutes anyway to think and to write, and you need to think of 10 things to say. So let's have a read of the question. Part A. The methods by which accounting standards are developed differ considerably throughout the world. Often argue the two main systems of regulation that determine the nature of accounting standards: a rules-based system and a principles-based system. Explain briefly the difference between the two systems. State which system you believe is most descriptive of international financial reporting standards. Okay. I'm just going to jot down in one word form the thoughts which immediately come into mind. So rules are inflexible. One size fits all. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a huge multinational or a small company choosing to comply with IFRS. You comply with IFRS and the rules. Sorry, not IFRS. You comply with the rules. It doesn't matter whether you're an enormous company or not an enormous company. If you have rules, you obey the rules. Resistant to change. Not the people, the rules that you've written out, where things move and things change. Do you rewrite the rule, or do you try and adapt the existing rule in its current format and hope that you can fit it to the changed circumstance? Rules are a box-ticking exercise to comply or not comply, and it's easy therefore to see whether compliance has been achieved. And they're objective. There's no messing about, did you comply with the rule? Well, I comply with most of the rule. No, you either comply or you don't. And the principles, therefore, is almost direct contrast. They are flexible. This is where you establish the spirit rather than comply with the spirit rather than the strict legal word. No, not legal word necessarily. Legal suggests it's law. They're generalized principles. They give us a variability in interpretation, which is a problem actually. Variability in interpretation, and therefore in conclusion you say they're subjective. State which system you believe is most descriptive of international financial reporting standards. Which is them? Well, the S within IFRS stands for standards, and standards should be what they say. They should be standards, should be across the board. And if you allow interpretation, which is what the principles base does, if you allow interpretation, you're allowing different cultures, different cultural attitudes to play a part in interpretation. And that's too risky. too difficult to monitor? I want to use the word police, so to police, to regulate. There is a degree of variability within IFRS as they stand. But probably on balance, IFRS are more rules-based than principles-based. That's what I would say, something along those lines for Part A. Part B, Part B, we've got a company here, public listed company, currently uses local standards for its financial reporting. The board of directors is considering the adoption of international financial reporting standards in the near future, with ambitious growth plans which involve extensive trading with many foreign companies. The possibility of acquiring at least one of its trading partners as a subsidiary. What are the advantages that we could gain by adopting IFRS for financial reporting purposes? Wasn't it Shakespeare? Wasn't it Shakespeare that said that man is not an island unto himself? Man is not an island. And I think in the early part of this 21st century, you have to accept that globalization is a fact of life. And with globalization, we then have harmonization of accounting treatment or treatment of accounting matters and standardization. Because these will lead themselves to consistency, comparability. I'm not going to list horizontally, I'm going to list vertically. It's one thing, comparability. It's one thing which I suggest with an exam technique. So, consistency, comparability, credibility. I'm just saying these as they come into my mind. Image of the company. They'll be seen as forward thinking, innovative, leaders, dynamic, proactive. Always got to bring proactive in. Proactive, adopting IFRS before they're required to. We can actually turn that into positive advertising. We prepare our financial statements compliant with international standards rather than just local standards. And you can see, I could see companies using this as advertising, selling the image of the company. And in the context of the company Baxon that we're looking at, they're talking about taking over possibility of acquiring at least one of its trading partners as a subsidiary. What about the raising of finance? Should be easier. I'm going to put another word in, raising of international finance. Should be easier if compliant with IFRS. We're going to have to accept it eventually. So, why not sooner rather than later? The expense of compliance and changing from local GAAP to IFRS, you're going to have to bite that bullet anyway. You're going to have to comply eventually, and the longer you leave it, the less dynamic you will be seen by the general marketplace, by your stakeholders generally, and by your shareholders. It could be quite a reputation gain for a company to push forward with adoption of IFRS. Anyway, those are the sort of thoughts that I would have brought in. The time is 16:43. Where do we say we'd finish? 16:51. Yeah. Another 8 minutes. That's 16:40. I've just taken 10 minutes, just over half the time allocation. And these just the words that instantly came to ideas that instantly came to my mind. Be interesting to see what the examiner's own answer suggests. I may completely have missed the target on this, but it's one of those areas where I think if you write down 10 rational thoughts, 10 plausible, sensible, mature thoughts, I think it would be difficult for a market to ignore or not to give you credit for those ideas. Anyway, that's enough of that. I'm going to stop it, and that's 2012 exam, June 2012, finished.